Hello everyone, welcome to Sarath Chandra IAS Academy. So today we will be discussing the two mains question from weekly class test 17. So let's start our discussion. So our first question is from GS paper 1 medieval history, and it is related to the administration of Mughal Empire. So first, let us discuss that what kind of topics are already been asked in UPSC with reference to Mughal Empire. So, first topic which is already asked is about the literature of Mughal Empire. Second, it is about the architecture of Mughal Empire. And till now, not many questions are asked from basically the administration. So I think we can prepare this topic from mainly this question, because if ever the question on administration is asked, so it will be asked on the administration of Akbar only, because main innovations and main policies were brought under the rule of Akbar. Okay, so that's why we have given this question, because if you want to prepare about the administration of Mughal Empire, you can prepare in brief from this answer. Okay, so let's start our discussion. First, we will be focusing on the main keywords, and main directives. So, what the question says, the efficient administrative innovations of Akbar, we are talking about Akbar, brought stability to northern India, to northern Indian polity for 2 centuries. And our directive is analyze. Whatever we have to do, we have to analyze the success. What we have to analyze? We have to analyze the success of Mughal administrative innovations in this context. Okay, so now you have to focus on each and every word. Okay, so what is our main topic? It is about the administrative innovations of who, innovations under whom we are talking about Akbar. Okay, and the thing we have to analyze is, we have to analyze his innovations in this context. In this context means in the context of Akbar, because if the name was not given, then you have to discuss all the policies under all the emperors in the Mughal Empire. Okay, so now we have to discuss about the policies of Akbar. And see, if we are talking about the analysis of success, what the analysis of success means you have to tell the extent, that to what extent the policies were successful, and also you have to discuss the challenges, that what all challenges were faced after those policies were implemented. So in this way we can properly analyze our topic. Okay. So now let's start. So see, as we have already discussed, that our answer will be in 3 parts, that is introduction, body and conclusion. Okay. And if you remember in last class when we were discussing about the question of Vijayanagar Empire, so we discussed one more important thing, that if we are talking about any empire, okay, so we have to add that extra thing. And what that extra thing is? It is the map of that empire. Okay, so we have to additionally add map of that empire. So see, if we are talking, the map would be changing, means under, for example, under Akbar the map would be different. For example, under Aurangzeb, many more areas came under Mughal Empire. So if we are talking about Akbar, we have to make a small map covering the areas which were during the period of Akbar. Okay, so this will be our main structure. We will be focusing on introduction, body, conclusion, and mainly the map. Okay. So now let's start our introduction. So see, we also discussed this, that for writing any intro, so you don't have to remember each and every point. If we are talking about Mughal administration and specifically about Akbar, so you can write all the very simple points in the introduction which you already read in your prelims. Okay, so we can start with the timeline, that Mughal Empire existed in the Indian subcontinent from about 16th to 19th century, okay, founded by Babur. And if the question is on Mughal administration, so let's give a hint to the examiner that yes, we know that the administration was centralized. Okay, And since the question is specifically talking about Akbar, so we can write a simple line that mainly innovations, main administrative innovations were during the period of Akbar. So now let's discuss the policies of Akbar. Okay, so very simple, you don't have to remember each and everything. Now let's talk about body. So see, in body you have to write the main content which is actually asked in the question. Okay, so what you have to do, you have to analyze the success of the policies of Akbar. So to analyze anything, first you have to write those policies, right? Then only you will say that this was successful and this was not. So in body, first we will write the policies. Okay, then we will say that yes, they were successful. We will write about the positives of those policies, and then finally we will discuss the challenges, that what were the challenges. So in this way you can complete your answer. So under the policies, mainly you have to discuss the major policies under the rule of Akbar. So main policy you can discuss about Zabti and Daisala system. Okay, in Zabti and Daisalas, see, in policies you just have to write what were those policies. You don't have to write that whether they were good, whether they were bad, or what were their impacts. Okay, just write the policy. So just describe what the Zabti or Daisala system was. Okay, now then you can write of Mansabdari and Jagirdari system. Mansabdari and Jagirdari system. Okay. So mainly the institutionalization of Mansabdari system is attributed to Akbar only. Okay, so it is very important policy under the rule of Akbar. So you can describe on these lines. Thirdly, you can describe, see, earlier there was provision of a all-powerful wazir. All-powerful wazir means after the king, the wazir holds significant amount of power. So what Akbar did, Akbar distributed this power in various departments, so that power was not centralized with a particular personality. Okay, so you can, third point you can describe about this, and fourth point you can say that Akbar tried to implement the concept of pan-India currency. He tried to implement the concept of pan-India currency. So if you know other extra points, very good, but I think these four are the main points which you can describe about under the policies of Akbar. Okay, now comes the analysis part. In analysis you have to write the positives and negatives. Okay, so let's start with positives. Okay, so let's discuss the positives. See, we can here we can discuss the positives. So see, positives, when we talk about Zabti or Daisala system, so when you will be writing the answer, so you will describe that under the Zabti system, what happened was one third of the revenue share went to the the royal treasury, and 2/3 was left with the peasants. So this happened from time to time on a regular basis. So in this way, regular amount of money was put in the royal treasury, and it imposed or it reinforced the trust of people on the Mughal Empire, that what we are paying, only what we have to pay, means we are not being exploited. And on the other hand, the revenue sources are also increasing. So see, if the revenue is strong, the empire can easily pay the salaries to the owner of all the departments, and if all the departments are strong, so your administration will be strong, and if administration is strong, military is strong, overall your empire will be strong. So in this way it contributed to the overall efficiency and strength of empire. So this is one of the positive, that revenue sources are very strong and people also had the trust on the emperor. Now second, if we talk about Mansabdari and Jagirdari system, so see, what was the main important thing under this, that the people were appointed on the merit basis, means there was no favoritism, and if the people of merit are sitting at very high positions, so you can imagine the extent of efficiency in the administration. Okay, so you can discuss on these lines. about the we have discussed about positive of this, we have discussed about positive of Mansabdari system. And if we talk about that, the king started to appoint the nobles and for all the departments, and no person had the single authority. Okay, so this way, so in this manner also the trust was promoted in the empire. Okay, the people were ready to listen the policies of empire, because he was he was in the favor of merit and not the favoritism. Okay, and if we talk about pan-India currency, so say you can imagine, if there is common currency, so there won't be any difficulty in trade and commerce. And if trade and commerce are strong, revenue will be strong. And if revenue is strong, you have already discussed in this point that what will happen. So in this way, we discussed about the positives. Now, when we talk about the challenges, that what were the challenges? So in challenges, one of the most important point which you will be discussing is the Jagirdari crisis. So mainly what is the gist of Jagirdari crisis is that over a period of time the number of Jagirdars were increasing, but there was very less amount of Jagir to give to them. Okay, so eventually what happened? It led to Jagirdari crisis. Okay, so you have to describe this. Second, second challenge which you will be discussing is the agriculture crisis. So in agriculture crisis, basically, you will discuss on these lines. See what was happening, that at the lower level there were peasants. Here there were Jagirdars. Sorry. Here there were zamindars, and here there were Jagirdars. So what happened? This started a chain of exploitation. The zamindars used to exploit peasants, and the Jagirdars used to demand money from the zamindars, which they already took from the peasants. Okay, so in this way, what peasant did was all the peasants and farmers, they deserted that land. They fled away from their land. So if there are no peasants, no farmers, so how the agriculture productivity can happen? How we can boost the production of agriculture? And if there is no agricultural production, there will be no revenues. So in this way, what happened? This finally led to agriculture crisis also. Okay, so first we can discuss about Jagirdari crisis, we can discuss about agriculture crisis, and third you can discuss, see, Akbar introduced this concept of Mansabdari he institutionalized the concept of Mansabdari and Jagirdari system. So over a period of time, these mansabs became too much powerful that finally, when the authority of king was becoming weak, so they finally declared themselves independent. So in this way, the process of decentralization of Mughal Empire started. So I think you can discuss on these lines. Okay, so this was the body part, and in the conclusion also you don't have to remember each and everything. In conclusion, you can simply write that the policies introduced by any empire will be strong only till the authority of that Mughal emperor is strong. Because see, you will see, over a period of time after the period of Aurangzeb, the Mughal emperors were not very able. So even if the policies were very good, the implementation won't be very good, right? So in this way, on these lines, you can conclude the answer. Okay, so I think this was the first question. Now let's discuss our second question, which is from GS paper 3, budget. Okay, so here we have to distinguish. Between capital budget and revenue budget, and we have to explain the components of both of these budget. Okay, so I think the question is very simple. You don't have to analyze, or you don't have to think that what all headings should I add. So we will directly go into the structure, that is introduction, body and conclusion. We will be writing our answer under this structure. Okay, so in the introduction, I think a very basic thing, you can define the budget, okay, or you can mention the article, or you can mention that who prepares the budget or who discusses the budget in the parliament. So introduction is very simple. Okay, now comes the body. So in body, basically you have to explain the components also of the budget, and then you have to distinguish about between those components also. So capital budget and revenue budget are basically the components only. Okay, so when you will be discussing the budget, no, so in budget you have to discuss capital budget and revenue budget. Okay. So now see, whenever you are asked to distinguish or compare and contrast or differentiate between two things, no, so to make the answer more presentable, try to write the answer in columns. Write here revenue budget, write here capital budget, and give here heading that on what basis you would be differentiating, and describe those components here. So see, the presentation would be very easy and it will be helpful for the examiner also to understand that what all points we have discussed, right? So see, if you have to differentiate between these two budgets, no, so you should be having some 5-6 points to describe on. So let's start with the objective only. Okay, let's start with the objective only. Objective. Okay, so mainly the purpose of revenue budget is to carry out the day-to-day functioning of the government. Okay, so you can describe here that mainly the purpose is to carry out day-to-day functioning. Okay, and basically the purpose of capital budget, you can discuss the formation of asset or the increment or decrement of liability. So asset or liability you can discuss here. Okay, now you can discuss about the revenue and expenditure part of both of these budget, revenue and expenditure part. So revenue, basically you can see the receipts. Okay, so here you can write examples of both of these. So for example, under the revenue budget, what all receipts means the sources from where you can earn the revenue. No, okay, the sources from where you can have the income. So under revenue budget, in receipts you can write the tax and non-tax revenues. All the tax and non-tax revenues will come under the receipts of revenue budget. Okay, and if we talk about the expenditure, so you can basically discuss about the salaries or pensions. No, because see, in revenue budget, whatever we will discuss, no, so they will be occurring on a frequent basis. They will be occurring on a regular basis. It's not like that purchased or sold a particular thing and it won't be happening till 2 or 3 years. So everything happening under revenue budget will be happening on a regular basis. Okay, so here for capital budget, the sources of income you can discuss, for example, disinvestment. You disinvested, government disinvested one of its PSUs and it earned revenue from that. Okay, so you can discuss about disinvestment. And if we are talking about expenditure, so see, capital budget, capital budget means the expenditure or the revenue will be for the long term. It won't be happening on a frequent basis. For example, you invested in a particular project for 10 to 15 years. So no, for 10 to 15 years you invested, it won't be happening on a regular basis. So here you can write, for example, government invested in a particular project. Done. So see, on these lines only, we can discuss a third point also, that under all the things happening under revenue budget, are recurring in nature. That is happening on a frequent basis, on a regular basis, and here they are non-recurring or not frequent, right? Not frequent. Okay, so I think next points we will be discussing revenue budget and capital budget. Now you will talk about the assets and liabilities. So no, see, mainly the for assets and liabilities, we can't discuss much here, means there is not much effect under revenue budget. But if you talk about capital budget, so in capital budget you have to discuss both things, increasing of liability, decreasing of asset, and decreasing of liability and increasing of asset. And here you have to give examples also. For example, if you are giving example of increasing liability, so when liability will increase, when we will borrow something, when we owe something to other. Okay, so for example, when we took borrowings, for example, when we borrowed from IMF, so this is one of the liability. Okay, and reduction in asset, for example, we discussed if government disinvest disinvest one of its PSUs. So it was one of our asset, but government sold it. So asset, decrement of asset. And similarly, if you talk about decrement of liability, so when government repay its past loans, repayment of past loans, so what will happen? Liability will decrease. Now we won't be having to pay to others. We already repaid our past loans. If we talk about increment of asset, so when the government purchases new machinery, these all machineries are capital only, will come under capital because government won't be purchasing it again and again. Okay, so our asset is increasing. So basically you can discuss on these lines. Now one more point you can add about the impact. So as we know that revenue budget is mainly important for day-to-day functioning of the government. So if we talk about its deficit, that when we say that India, if for example if we say that India is under the deficit, under revenue budget, so it is very dangerous, because if the government do not have the money for the day-to-day functioning only, means government have no money or very less money to pay the salaries or give the pensions. So it will be very dangerous, no? But if we talk about deficit in the capital budget, so it is very normal thing. For example, almost every developing country, for example India, it borrows money because it has to invest in welfare schemes, it has to invest in the infrastructure project. So if we are under debt, so it is not that much dangerous. But the deficit under revenue budget is more dangerous than this, because government cannot even perform its day-to-day functions. So yes, I think we have discussed mainly the important points. You can discuss on these slides. And now conclusion. So see, in conclusion, you can discuss that what are the other frameworks which are adopted by the government in recent times. So you can discuss about, see, if we are talking about budget, okay, so you can discuss about the gender budgeting, you can discuss about the outcome budgeting. So these, why we are discussing, see, if the question is on budget, so generally people face difficulty that this is the question from static part, we know what we have to write in body, we know what we have to write in introduction, we define budget. Now how should we conclude? Okay, so this is the manner in which you should conclude, that if you know some of the latest frameworks or latest policies which the government is following, so you can write that government is more focusing on gender budgeting outcome, like gender budgeting, more investment in the schemes for the specifically for the gender, for the girls, okay, or outcome budgeting, that government is investing only in those schemes which are performing, means there is particular outcome, and not blindly investing in these schemes. Okay, so on these lines you can discuss about this answer also. So I think we discussed both of these answers. So that's all for today from my side, and we will discuss the next two mains questions of weekly test 18 in the next class. So thank you.